Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever this broadcast find you in the world at the moment. This time, Mohammed Shilon coming to now, live from the U.S., North Carolina. And also, you know, this broadcast is being done with a co-host, Mr. Victor Mengot. We go get for introduce with special guest. We're going to have a special guest on the show today. Uh, with whom we're going to start the program because we know say this now a later time of the day. We are broadcasting from Eastern Daylight Time in the United States. It's just 3:30 to we. We in England now at the moment, in some part of the world, it's after 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock. So we're very mindful of that. So with special guests, they come from where the time is 4 to 5 hours ahead of we on broadcasting time. So for that, we'll make sure say we will start with them. But for today, after we finish, with I'm not going to name the special guest because it's going to be introduced by my co-host. So, but after that, we are going to dive into some other issues, current or trending national issues. The most important of which is going to be the recent Parliamentary Act, the manner in which Parliament pass them, the rush with which they pass them, the skipping of parliamentary or the procedure way for pass bills because it benefits them personally. We're going to deal with that, and we're going to make una see the indication and the quality of representation with the Ghana Parliament. So we're going to be touching on that. And then we'll also try to elaborate on the benefits we didn't try to forget, the nature of the bill, why they Russian so much, and they were there till midnight, past midnight. So we will talk about that. So now, the other thing we always can do on this show is for just remind people them as to the basic rules what we all they abide by. If you are this, we all know say this show is being done live and it's being done internationally, so it's being seen all over the world. With that, we've always encouraged mutual respect. You don't call in to curse or to say disrespectful things to other callers or to the host, uh, and the host will, in like manner, try to maintain some decorum for make sure say we respect you, the caller, likewise. If you disagree, your disagreement in a respectful manner, and we'll go make sure say it's reciprocated or done the same way. So we always stick with that rule there, and we see we've been successful at it. People do control their temperament, and they're not they call with sharp tongue. But we're not to say not call and disagree. We're not to say call and agree with what you would say. And we also can try to remind people and for say this show is more or less in putting out information out there. Let people form their own opinion. And sometimes the information we put out there might appear to some people that is against a certain government or officials or authorities, but that is not being done with such intent. The intention is to make sure we disseminate information, news, or then we allow una for make una in judgment. So we hope una will appreciate that. So we not to pro this party, that party, not party, but we invite people and from different parties then for come and talk. And this tell we what you think for help the country and how they intend to accomplish that. Now we get certain numbers them. What we also can remind people them. Like, number one, people do know we are carried on Facebook, Instagram, So in addition to that, YouTube. In addition to that, we also have certain numbers that are always broadcast. Uh, Number one, let's start off with the toll-free number. We get an 866-944-7722 number. 866-944-7722. If you're going to be calling on toll-free, if you're within the United States, you can call on that number. You can reach we live. Also, if you're calling from the UK, it's plus 44 2080891455. If you're calling from the UK, it's plus 44 2080891455. If you're calling from Australia, it's plus 61 290984 Again, plus 61 290984 And last but not least, if you do call on WhatsApp, you will call on 1-343-997-5828. Again, 1-343-997-5828 on WhatsApp. That said, let me roll over to Mr. Victor Mangot, who is when I'm a co-host, who will do the introduction of a special guest. Over to you, Mr. Mangot.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mohammed. And
Yes, sir.
as usual, this program is very special. Before I introduce the guest, we know say now in an election they approach in Sierra Leone. We see some of the things the way ECSL they do in terms of political party. We also see some of the political aspirants them or former members jumping ship. So it's a whole case of musical chairs. We also see alliances, agreements. So with special guest tonight is no other than Mr. Alan Luke. By the way, I was not around last week because me and Alan go to the same school, the Great Prince of Wales School, where they say for searching Sierra Leone far and wide, no school can ever be found that sends forth to a gentleman or stands on farmer ground. So it's one gentleman against another gentleman, but of course, we have our legal luminary who knows Sierra Leone very well, hails from the Aberdeen area, was schooled in Bo, lived in several other parts. So you have people with a wealth of experience. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm introducing to you today our special guest, Mr. Alan Luke. Alan Luke, until recently, was part of the NGC National Executive, being as is the national coordinator for NGC Diaspora. Because when NGC started, it brings good hopes to a lot of people. And I feel to say, when you talk about sober-minded people, a lot of people who were neutrals in the diaspora decided to join this NGC movement. But now everything is falling like a pack of cards. So, Mr. Alan Luke, welcome to our show, The VOS. We are one of the leading lights in online broadcasting. Before we start engaging with you, I don't know if you want to make an introductory statement, then we could go up with the program.
Well, me fumble them all say we na day on for say good afternoon to all or good evening or good morning on a day. Kusha I'm glad for dinner this program. I get for try my best for keep this in Creole. So yes, I'm looking forward to the conversation with a fellow Prince William and also with Mr. Shilon. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Okay, so welcome to the VS Network family. We hope say this not to the only time we will call you because you have enormous experience in the politics of Sierra Leone. So as we approach the election, we will be happy to host you as a guest, especially now that you're neutral, because you now one person will not declare for Alusain or Alasan. So at least, and you're a major mover in the politics scene. So let's start. My first question I will ask you. What is the NGC ideology? What in the belief of NGC when you decided to join, whether 5 or 7 years ago? What makes sure you say, well, here is a new beginning in our politics, and I believe in what they stand for and what changes they can come with. So explain to we viewers there.
That's a very good question. Thanks for asking that. I'll just go straight into that. Me, I can always say to people, and we can ask me this question. I can always say to people, me now one person we nobody not take go into the old KKYM movement. Nobody now one day introduced me. I simply turned up. Yeah, because I was seeking out a new form of politics. We go represent Saloon. We go represent Sierra Leonean people and interests. We go different from the politics of APC and the politics of SLPP where we've been used to. Look, I got into this political process for the first time round about the age of 40, 44, thereabouts. But my background has essentially been very much political. I studied politics all throughout my university, education, and also, work very closely in the sort of government space and other things like that. So I've been very much politically interested in individual. Never got involved in Sierra Leone politics because waiting me to look for was a form of politics which is new, where Sierra Leoneans can elevate and raise the argument above just simply everything is being divided into either APC or SLPP, where different people can have different voices. So everything is not just that dichotomy of APC, SLPP, North, South, Mende, Timni. There are other people in Sierra Leone with other types of expressions. We need their views be heard. They're younger people, a much younger dynamic group of people. Nearly 70% of our population is young. They don't have time for the old politics. They want to live. They want for live. They don't want for let the world left them behind. And me being to look for politics way new, we go give that hope. We go make we begin for project a kind of Sierra Leone, the kind of Sierra Leone where me and you get to the education, including Mr. Shield, where we get to education, where we for come out to these parts of the world, where we for compete and live on our own. We are out here in the United Kingdom or in the United States. We're part of society. We the effort to transform these countries the way we deign. So we've got skills, we've got things that we've acquired, yet we have our nation, a nation where used to be a beacon in the world, the languish. And, I can always say, if we own generation and make that change day and help for make that change day to Sierra Leone, you get a whole bunch of people in our Sierra Leone where they grow up now, under 40s, we don't know the kind of Sierra Leone where we experience. This chaos, nine they know. They don't know nothing different. And if we not try for affect that change and bring that hope and bring that direction of travel that says we now prepared for move forward and move ahead, we're going to miss that. And Sierra Leone as a nation, not just internationally, but in the region, in the sub-region, we're going to be left behind. Right now, we don't begin talk about in the last couple of weeks, and I don't the old man they talk about for the first time, say the Guinean currency is now stronger than the Sierra Leonean currency. I mean, that's just an example of how we're falling behind and how we're failing our younger people. So for me, I was looking for something that breathes new life into our kind of politics, something that offers something different, something that allows our young people to have their place in the world, something that takes us away from war. Whatever led us to war, we don't want to go back to that space. So we need national conversations which are bigger. We can envision we're bigger and much more than APCSLPP. And we need all sorts of voices to contribute to our politics. And we need to challenge all these old arguments. Arguments away, some me not really picking way some of them fetch to go on. And I don't have a responsibility for them. I can't own them. The young kids now growing up in Sierra Leone who are 16, in the 18, they're not responsible for some of these things. They want to live. They want to breathe. They want for get good jobs. They want to get good opportunities in life. So we cannot consign them to politics of old men, and old interests. We need to chart a way forward. So for me, that's what I was looking at. So when I joined the NGC, I actually went out looking for this person called Candy because I thought he offered that. And I thought Not that I'm not being thing to say that Inwang would deliver that, but I thought he could be that sort of rallying point where a lot of people then can come around and build that coalition for change. That was what I was looking for.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. But from what we know, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
with most party, you get radicals, you get followers, you get leaders, right?
Sure.
With the NGC, we get people the way they talk about the KKY movement, Kande Kole Yumkela movement. When I am believing, they look at this man as a game changer, a leader
Yeah.
with experience, and all the rest of it. So how the people that will be the NGC, where the main reason for join, now because of the KKY movement, and then like you so we join because of what you they explain to we so. How then two groups here sit together and how they able to shape the NGC politics?
You know, that then one of the big tensions we done in the NGC for a long time, because some of the things that we not be understand, some of we were coming from new. Then one like we were not ever involved in APC or SLPP, not being really get an understanding of that issue. That, you know, essentially there were people in the inside SLPP way be want can therefore can be an alternative to Bill. And there was that divide in the SLPP party. We've been the hope say when we created NGC that Dandy Nogu move across, that the people that really move across with Kande Yumkela for can form NGC were doing that because they were motivated by the right sort of ideals, the sort of liberal democratic ideas and the ideas for progress. But it looked like that was not really solved, if I get to be very honest, because throughout the life of NGC, that tension did on the run. And then you can get this kind of constantly going back and forth between, UNA KKYM, to KKYM, and to make that sort of progress beyond that. So that tension there not been there. In fact, I remember once where I've been get for tell Kande this, I've been the drive and go one event in the UK. I said to him, there's an SLPP overhang. There are people who are in NGC who, when I started coming to these meetings, when I first joined KKYM, people will go tell me, say, go Keketo man, me been the bring a SLPP meeting. So you been get people in a way being they look at the new people that were in office now in SLPP, where they think say, na mistake I make. If only I've been back Bill, like I get office by now. So some of them people they obviously make Mr. Yumkela feel to say he get an obligation to them. You see what I mean? So because we follow you, now because we not go with Bill, now make we not in a job right now. Now make we not get that ministerial position right now. So that overhang been not always there. And I remember telling him that if you not deal with this overhang, where there are people here where they feel to say, because they make a sacrifice, you owe them an obligation. You don't owe anybody an obligation. Everybody who's making a sacrifice to come and join this are doing it on their own volition. You do this for country. You see what I mean? If we don't deal with this problem go and become a big issue for this party going forward. And to be honest, that has been a tension. Even when I was UKI chair, that was a tension throughout. In fact, before I became UKI chair, that was a tension in the NGC, that you get this whole group of people that we feel to say they could be, if they had stayed in SLPP, if they'd stayed or they backed the right horse, they'll be in a position where they'll be an ambassador or they'll be a minister or whatever. And then they say, oh, Lily Boboya, we Mother Bill don't bring come in and all intended to get big position. So there was that tension there. I'm going to be very honest about that. So I think that affected the party in so many ways.
Okay, now that can me go back to waiting people and believe. And me self believe in that. Because let me declare my own political interest. I never be a member of a political party, but me a life patron of a party called AJIP, any government in power. So I work with different government for to the development of Stalin. So I did that under Pokaba, I did that under Skurma, and I did it under Bill.
Yeah.
So we believe say a third force is needed. Now all man they talk.
Yeah.
We don't get several attempts of a third force. Some of we don't familiar with politics. Remember days gone by, Dr. Khalifa Smart, when the same APC and SLPP they reform. Twice he don't cast a third force. First now be UN's United People's Party or whatever. And then he went out of the way. That party died. Then he came later on when politics start. Then another attempt to get Charles Magai, who also thought he was a third force, PMDC. Then now we get NGC. So the third force, and now go by in a name. Because in Creole, then they say the name we give somebody, then they determine in character. No disrespect to some name. Like Mr. Shillong will tell you, for me, for that where they say somebody named Minkai. Some people have a derogative way for say anybody with name Minkai na Yuki person. In the Creole, they get Yoruba name, Babatunde. Baba in Yoruba means big man. Or name like Balogu. Balogu na warrior. Very troublesome people. So we get this name National Grand Coalition. We're in a coalition. And we remember, because I know other people, because last week we interviewed the leader of the NURP, Mr. JPJ Sandy, who also was a breakaway from SLPP, away from the NURP. And I've worked with him for long. There was a time when these parties, I was told, went to Ghana. Right? That includes Charles Magai, Kande Yumkela. You get the other man when I be former Vice President Sam Sumana. For God decide how they will come together for fetch them two giants here. What do you know about that? And waiting at the NGC, because if you say a coalition, who do you have coalition of? Is it coalition of like-minded people, same thinking people, or coalition of political groups, whether they're registered party or ideology?
So just about the issue where you've been talking about the meeting in Ghana, I'm not aware, say, NGC been participating in that meeting, if I've got to be very honest. I remember at the time when that meeting happened, that it included the likes of C4C, Bindidi, and PMDC, but I don't believe, say, NGC been participating in that meeting at all. I'm not even sure that NGC were invited or were aware at that time. So I can't really speak to that particular issue there. But as to the issue of coalition, again, I can understand. I mean, the name National Grand Coalition suggests, say, you should be a party looking for build a broad-based coalition, isn't it? And I think one of the things to make us say with that is after the 2018 election, there was a clear appreciation by certainly somebody like Dennis Bright that in order for NGC for succeed in the political landscape, given the fact that Usaudi right now in Salon, people and they make them voting decisions based on red or green largely, and also whose part of the country you come out. There's a recognition that, until we get a voter base, an electorate base, we're actually more sophisticated. We're to make decisions on policy rather than sort of ethno-regional factors. It will be a struggle for a political party like NGC for actually gain a very strong foothold. So what was necessary was to begin to work together with other political parties. And one of the reality of the 2018 election was we had something like about 13 to 17 political candidates up for the presidency. And one of the things that we realized about that is you get anything from anybody can just set up a party just because they want the attention. So you have this sort of wide range of political parties then with various level of survivability, if I can put on that way there. And whilst political pluralism is something me go champion as alone, I want to see lots and lots of political parties being around, we therefore also question whether some of these political parties are actually viable. So what we need to get now, sort of that engagement between political parties, let them begin for have them kind of conversations and they like grown up, statesman-like conversations where we're actually thinking about how we can come together, and actually do proper, if I should use the word deal making, so you can build that stronger third force coalition if that's what you need. Rather, because when we're thinking day in the way of these conversations is this obsession that people can get with becoming president. You know what I mean? I had a conversation about 2 years ago with one of the former aspirants within the SLPP. At that time, before Dr. Kande Yunkela left SLPP to come and form NGC, if you remember, I said they get something called the All Aspirants Alliance. There are about 12 or so of them. We've been stand say against BO. Let find the person who could be the candidate. We go stand up, and then there was this thing where nobody not be one for giveaway. If you know what I mean. And this all not be help, if you like. You see what I mean? Because all mounting to same for the aspirant. So I had a conversation about 2 years ago with one of these individuals who was in the UK, and he was one of those aspirants, and he's now working in the UK doing a printing job. And I said to him, I said, hang on. I said, in 2018, none of you guys will not all want to be president, and none of you actually think to say it was necessary for have that sensible conversation about how you give way. I said, when you look at what you're doing now, and you go back to your reflection then about, your reluctance to give way for this other, how do you feel? Because what you have is grown men already fit for that top position. You see what I mean? So that comes in the way of people actually having meaningful conversations about really what are my strengths, which are the brain come in. You see what I mean? And these are the things that we don't upset this idea of developing coalitions. But after the election, Dennis Bright started that process. He started that engagement with people like Femi Claudius Cole and other political parties, and they began to develop that engagement. They campaigned against things like some of the midterm census thing, the local government bill that the government wanted to do about cyber law. Remember at one point the government wanted to stop political parties campaign, being involved in local government. They made a stand against some of these things, and they started creating that environment where they can begin to talk to each other. Because you need to develop that relationship there, so that you not begin to get so obsessed with Namige for be the president, because that normally comes in the way of the conversation, and that can stop the coalition being developed.
Okay, well, my final question to you, and then I will leave you to I'll bring in your co-host where Naing will talk about. I read a brilliant piece you did about where you analyze this marriage of convenience between Kande Yunkela and President Bio. I remember you had your annual general meeting. People were elected. You were elected. And then after that, Kande came back. I remember a meeting where in Abini talk, where people had started getting fears, say, one jump ship. I mean, in response, people say, well, the president called me. I get for listen to him. I'm for development. Right? And some of his remark be very disparaging. He used some cruel ideology, like say, Peking, they need to give Peking kalbas na nikau. So for explain to people the nikau na the Muslim form of marriage. So we go married woman and Muslim culture, you get that kalbas with the elders now you go give. Right? So he say all those things. And I think that triggered some concern at the MGC. So for you personally, what to make you resign? Because it happened immediately after that, that I'll call and say the Kande Yumkela, I mean, tutoring. Like we headmaster they call for people the assembly hall. You know, we be the prince of school. We get this great pasoya. Where Naina, in fact, Naina the father-in-law of the current mayor. When Pastor can call in assembly, so you talk to the pupils them. I look and say, now so can they do? So now then they happen. So you give your own part of the show because some people like we don't hear boku them. I think say we are very lucky for have you here for like part of the story. Then after that will be followed by I will hand over to me co-host where you go take and to critique of this strategic alliance. What it mean? And you read out very well, you point out certain clause them, and you can able share with me, and then you go legal implications. So finally, what's to make you resign?
So, Mr. Shillon, just to make a point here for your own understanding, the Terry Bigo Prince of Wales School will not be a Pafaola, we get Mr. Nelson Williams. So, just to make a distinction there for you all.
Different generation.
So some of the rigorousness where Mr. Mengot will go through, thankfully, and not be enjoying some of that. But let me just come back to a very good points there. I'll say a couple of things on this. And it's important that we actually get the context of all of this, into our heads, because I think there's too much misinformation, too much people trying to interpret things they don't understand and not part of these conversations. So I'll take you back to 13th and 14th of December. NGC became the first political party in opposition. We're able to complete a lower level election process leading to complete the convention. If you're an NGC member, say we've been now involved in that process from like around about May. And the roadblocks alone where PPRC they put in the place of opposition parties just to get to that convention for you able to stand is so many, and any NGC member knows all the petitioning that we had to go through all the way from council level before we finally got there. Even when we got there, we still had two members still going back to PPRC to petition the result. That just shows you the level of determination where the PPRC don't use during this election cycle for deprive a lot of political parties and get themselves into a place of readiness to compete election. So that is very important. So on the 14th of December, NGC members were very excited because we had just completed our convention. We had been the first political party. And that's where I got elected as a national executive member and also national officer. At that convention, the party made a resolution, and the resolution was that the party in NEC, in National Executive Committee, is giving the authority to go and negotiate with any political party about developing coalitions or alliances, and for come back to the National Delegates Conference to approve that. So not to the even the NEC just to go negotiate and come back and and just say I don't go stamp a deal and that's it. Fine. You go and negotiate and come back and bring to the national delegates for let them approve. So that was that power. That authority was given to the NEC. Now, if you just take that into account, so after that convention, the first thing then we then got was the fact that it was over Christmas period. By Christmas, 1st of January, we'll now all say Dr. Yumkela attended, Tihun church with the president. Okay, everybody gets a right for attend any church service with anybody, and if the president invites the Dr. Yumkela, well within his authority to go and attend such a conference, but we were not aware, we were not made aware. Roundabout, I went to Gambia on the 6th, so I've got these dates stuck in my head. I went to Gambia on the 6th of January, and before I was going away, we had a tweet after the Tihun visit. There was also the thing about, about 7 or 8 chiefs went to see Dr. Yumkela to sort of urge him about these coalitions. And before I went away, there was a tweet from him to the effect that we've almost achieved our aim, completed the negotiation agreement. And if you're not me, I'm like, hang on. We've just been elected. There's been Christmas, which is nobody not again negotiation on political matters over Christmas. We've seen you go to church. And by the 3rd of January, you've already negotiated. The national officers have not even met. The national executive has not even met. How has this happened? And now the national executive named the delegates then give their mandate today. So how does this happen? So for me, I was very curious about that. It became apparent to me that the majority of us in the national officer corps were not even aware of these going ons. Some people were aware, some of us weren't. So I went to the Gambia on the 6th, and we had a meeting of the national officers on the 10th. Whilst I was on a holiday, I attended the meeting via Zoom. And at the end of the meeting, under any other business, I said that we needed to have very much a clarity about our flag bearer process, because we've not been on decide what to do about a flag bearer. And we also needed to hear from Dr. Yumkela about what we're hearing about this deal, so that everybody as a national officer will be on the same page. If you elect me for do a job, I have to have the information to do the job. They can't put me in a committee and then some people get information and then the rest of us don't. If not even the chair, Dr. Dennis Bright, had this information. So we demanded as national officers that we needed to be up to speed with where we were. So the National Secretary General said, okay, well then in that case, because Dr. Yumkela was in Jeddah doing Umrah, the best opportunity will be on the 28th of, the earliest opportunity will be on the 28th of January, which was then the meeting when we had the NEC meeting on that 28th of January. So that meeting started at 11 o'clock. And everybody talks about this tape that they've heard. That when Dr. Yumkela spoke, he spoke about at 12 o'clock, midday. The meeting continued way till 6:30. Now, that time when he spoke, yes, it was laced with arrogance and all these sorts of things. I'm not going to go into all of that. But, politics, you expect that. You expect arrogance in people who are seeking high office. They have to have a bit of it. So nobody gets an issue with that. But at the end of when he spoke, the reality was that for a lot of people, he gave us clarity because what he was saying was, they say, him as a private citizen, he don't make your mind up, say, he go support the president in any way he chooses. But una take una party, go do it una party, which una want to do una party. Which is fine because what Nande been to do is even they separate him as a private citizen for go and do what he want to do and let the party go do what in the party want to do. Yeah? Perfectly fine. Nobody had a problem with that. I certainly didn't. I didn't resign because of that, by the way. But at 6:30, when Dennis Bright, the chair, this is his first neck being elected, is the chair of the party. He tables a motion to say, in line with what we're hearing about these conversations about, deals with, offers from SLPP, that he as the chair and Dr. Yum Calloway, SLPP don't begin to initiate conversations with, that they both together choose the team. That's all it is. Choose the team who will go and negotiate with SLPP. That was all he put on the table. And then all hell broke loose. Well, why should he say that? Who is he? And the whole meeting descended into a complete and utter farce. The kind of nonsense we may not expect from NGC, the kind of stuff where, NGC don't they say, oh, na so APC tan, na so SLPP tan, and then they do them kind of their illegality, their unconstitutionality. Suddenly you begin to see all of this at play in this whiter than white party where supposed to be upholding all the governance and constitutionality and all these things, all these ideals. Somehow you're not keeping up to the ideals that we not believe in anymore. And what I saw, and not just that, but also the threatening behavior that was going on in the meeting, and the disconnection of those of us who were out in the diaspora from being fully involved because we were basically just cut off to prevent us from voting. That basically just set the scene for me to say, no, something's gone fundamentally wrong in this party. This party is not what I thought it was. And so therefore, the decision that was taken on that day by the NEC was something that I could not reconcile myself with. I could not reconcile myself with the idea that in a country where people are suffering right now, in a country where we've witnessed extrajudicial killings, in a country where food inflation is 45%, in a country where we've seen spectacular devaluation of the leone, when it is the government's record that is on record at the election, that NGC, which claims to be a party of these democratic ideals, can then turn around and say, oh, we're going to align with that with the current government. I just couldn't reconcile myself with that. I just thought this is completely farcical. This is not representing the will of the people of Sierra Leone in any way. This will be doing them a grave injustice. And there was no way I was going to stay and remain part of that.
Well, thank you very much. I think now, as you know, this is not really, I don't do the first lap. So I will hand over the baton to my co-host, Mr. Shillen from America. So we're just taking a trip across the Atlantic. I mean, me and Mr. Luke, they're in UK. So now the ship, they sail towards the North Carolina coast. We'll get Mr. Shillon to engage with you based on your expose on this agreement. Over to you, Mr. Shillon. Mr. Shillon, you're mute.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Mr. Leo, before we go to the agreement with Mr. Bengot, they refer to, I just want to ask one or two quick questions where I hope something the answer could be short, but you don't necessarily have to make it short. Now, what do I understand the current status of the NGC? That the NGC exists and it is the NGC that now has aligned itself in the form of an alliance with SAPP, correct? So there is
Well,
the NGC as it was and as it is now in alliance or in alignment
I,
with SAPP.
I think that is a true statement to make. Yes, that's the
Okay.
decision they've taken to align
Okay.
with SLPP. Yes.
I asked the question because
Mm-hmm.
before you say what you say, I
Mm-hmm.
kept thinking, well, why did Dr. Bright, why did Mr. Luke, why people like Denkine not staying at the NGC? But now I seem to understand why, because there is no such existing organization for people like Una. Since we now not agree with the alignment or the association or the alliance, correct?
That's correct.
All right. So, because it's important that we there out here get some understanding as to why. Because I kept wondering, well, these are very intellectually powerful people who could have just stayed with the NGC and keep it going if kind of jump ship. But now I understand, say, jump ship, you take the ship with them. So some of the funa won't
Exactly.
go say, go say, well, we go get off the ship before you go to Usai, you try for Kerem. Now we understand
Exactly.
that. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And thank you so much. The next question where I want to ask is
Mm-hmm.
waiting, in spite of waiting that happened, so we people like Una, like Dr. Bright, like you, and
Mm-hmm.
many others, we still might get some inspiration for keep pushing forward, either individually or in the form of an organization, as to some advocacy about the betterment for Sierra Leone.
Mm-hmm.
Now, waiting on a plan for people like you from this point on. Are you just going to be an individual taking issues, or are you going to? Do you see any viable minority opposition group in which you think you fit, or what's your own position?
Well, I think it's a good question because I've always said with these things is when I recognize I don't live in Syria right now, so I've always seen myself primarily first and foremost doing a supportive role, trying to build capacity. I not ever try for run ahead of people locally because they live the experience every single day. If political change does not happen in Sierra Leone, it has no impact, zero impact on my personal life. What I do is to try to help to build that capacity. So I recognize that some colleagues, those on the ground, then take different sets of measures um, to the ones that I will take. I can afford to stand back and just watch because whether BO stays, whether BO goes, has zero impact on my life. But if you're living in Sierra Leone, you have to determine what you do. And so you can understand and appreciate, say, people then go do different things based on their set of circumstances. So I just wanted to make that one point, just to note that. I mean, I think that for me, what I feel, and I think one of the things I really feel as a very big consequence of this is it takes a lot to develop a third political party. And one of the things that we NGC has as an advantage over every other third political party we compete in the last 2018 election. I'm not to go as far back as the likes of PMDC days, but I talk about the last 2018 election where we get groups like C4C forming, was that NGC had a cross-country appeal, a national appeal, not like just C4C, which was predominantly from one part of the country. It had a level of critical mass of people, predominantly diaspora, but also in Sierra Leone as well. So, for example, as I mentioned, in December 14, when we concluded that process, the output was that NGC had elected 10,800 or so executives. So there was a level of criticality for sustain a political party over 5 years in opposition is not easy. It takes the commitment of a lot of people, of hundreds and hundreds of people, to make that happen. And I think that one of the downside for me in this, it goes back to the conversation when I started early, is that if tomorrow Victor Mengot put himself say, "Oh, I can't be a president. I'm such a wonderful man." If Jesus Christ can do and say, "I can't be president of Salon. I'm a wonderful man. I can't set up a third force." I can tell you, in the next 20 years, I don't see it happening. I don't see people putting faith in any third political party in the next 20 years. So we are left with the choice of dealing with just APC and SLPP. And so therefore we're left with looking into those parties to see who the progressive elements are and try to seek them out and try to work with them. And I think that for me is one of the disservice, if I should use the word, that Dr. Yim Keller's action has done to Sierra Leone's politics. And I think I have to make that point because that for me is an important point. That disservice to Sierra Leone as a country, because it will kill this action, basically kills that ability to trust anybody else. We'll get an Alan Luke and so many hundreds of other people putting their faith in anybody. I don't care what their experience is. I don't care where they're coming from. And therefore that means as a country, we wait now for let APC and SLPP decide, say, then don't get to a point where national advancement and development is something they take seriously.
All right. Okay. Let me just make one more comment before we'll go to your analysis of the agreement between NGC and SLPP. You just mentioned, for me, I have always been an optimist. My understanding of the world as it is that nothing is impossible. Because I look at in the general scheme of things, everything we know of, we enjoy today, at one point was an impossibility in the minds of the majority of mankind, until somebody saw it as being possible. If we fly in a plane today, most people thought in the early years it was impossible to do. But you had one person who was crazy enough to say, no, it's not. It is possible. And all the technological advancement we would see. And what we'll see, where they're going now, even automobiles being driven on the highway by themselves, without drivers. These were things thought of being impossible to do. Going to the moon was beyond possibility in the minds of most people. It was just a handful of people who saw the possibilities. To me, that has always been my aspiration and inspiration, that we've seen so many examples in life. We are not where we are today by pessimism in terms of technological advancement, social advancement, all kinds of advancement. And we know for sure the vast majority of mankind thought of all the privileges and opportunities and comfort we're enjoying today as being impossible until one person, two persons. In fact, I can give you a good example of cable television. I was in the United States where Ted Turner came up with the idea of cable TV. And he had about $20 million at the time. And we in America will get ABC, CBS, NBC. These were the big television companies. And then television stations closed at 9 o'clock. I mean, at 11 o'clock at night. They were off the air until about 5 or 6 in the morning. Because then the human mind cannot conceive what else could people be doing on the air from midnight all the way to 6 a.m. But Ted Turner come up with ideas of cable TV and 24-hour cable service. And people then, I was there when they were saying, he's lost his mind, it will never work, if he invests in money in something like that, it will also always in Papa left gear. But today, we enjoy the comfort of 24-hour television show services and so on. I'm laying all this foundation.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah.
Only because I respectfully disagree with those who do not see the possibility of overcoming the advantage where APC and SFPP get politically as a party. We get for think about how it's possible to pass them. Look, we see young people like Elon Musk, who just a few years ago, you never heard of him. Now the richest man in the world. Elon could have said, Bill Gates gets so much money, Bezos get so much money that there's no way I could get money past them. But the point is we have to aim for restructure our mind because there are too many examples of overcoming. So I see the possibility. I think it's a matter of, first of all, going through the process of not wanting to be at the top right away. So when NGC come into power, the goal should not have been to make a Yom Kela the next president. That should have been the wish, but that should not have been the goal. The goal should have been, and realistically believing that we're not going to make it this first round, but we will have built a foundation strong enough to add on to it that the next go around, which is this year, we will do better than we did the previous years. But waiting we see happen, people were despondent, discouraged because NGC did not achieve the expected results. And there were all kinds of talk. But that should be even more reason why I think people should have put their shoulders to the wheel and say, we're going to make it possible. We're going to make the impossible possible. Now, but that did not happen. But
can I just come in at this point? Can I just come in at this point, please? Because I think we need to correct some of these misconceptions. I think the reality is, the majority of people, as far as I'm concerned, in NGC, after the euphoria of 2018, realized that to win the presidency, not a one-term affair. That's until you get to work hard and build. This is why we talked about which is why, for starters, we started looking at these coalition discussions. One, yeah. So that, for me, the presidency issue was never an issue. I've adjusted to that reality that what you need to do is to build on a slow building process, not to a bing bang, tomorrow you're going to win. So I don't think that everybody was in that place where you putting that, where you seem to be putting everybody to say, oh, everybody's looking at this presidency thing. There are people who are hung up about the presidency, but a lot of the sensible people in NGC who are actually involved in running the machine know that that's not necessarily likely. And I think we've reconciled with that ages ago. So I don't necessarily think that that's true of everybody in NGC.
Oh, no, I wouldn't say everybody because usually it's kind of hard for everybody to agree. No, I didn't mean it that way. I'm just saying because the reaction is once Yom Kela decide to go that way, people begin to think it was like the end of the world. And I hear this pessimism over and over that APC and SFP will be very difficult to overcome. I have never entertained that feeling. I can see 1,000 ways where they can be outmaneuvered. But we don't, because if you believe with me, you get into the ring in a boxing match. I believe, say, I can't beat you. I will never win. I have to
Yeah.
see if I decide to get into the ring with you, I should have made up my mind even before I got into the ring as to
Yeah.
the possibility that if I don't win this time, I will learn
Yeah.
from a defeat for beat you next time.
But
But you
let's put
see,
it in
this man,
context, Mr. Schiller. Mr. Schiller, let's just take this into context. Somebody like me and majority of people who have been supporting NGC have thrown their money at this party for the last 8 years. Yeah? For the last 8 years. Okay? We've managed, get back to what I said earlier, we managed to get this party, first party, to get to convention. Yeah? Convention to get itself ready to contest. And then all of a sudden, by maneuvering, yeah, all the planning to contest, it's basically Mr. Yunkel's action basically just pulled the floor off everybody, essentially. So it is that issue about the trust for me that's the issue. The issue I'm coming at is where you're going to get in future hundreds of people who are going to be willing every month to be giving hundreds of pounds or dollars. That because you get for finance a third party. A third party we're not on teeth from government needs a way of financing it. So the finance is critical. So where are you going to get somebody who's going to be prepared to part company in a year with £5,000 or £10,000? And I'm saying to you that person, you're not going to find those people being willing to do that
okay,
because of the discontinuity. I'm saying it will take a
I think,
while for
no, yeah,
us
I
to
know,
get back.
I know what
That's why I'm
you're going to get. There's a caller.
okay.
There's a caller. We're going to take that call, Mr. Luke, because we normally can get call in between, and we don't want to let people stay on the line for too long.
sure,
So we
sure.
will take the call, and then we will go back to you, and we will try to get to this analysis where you make about the agreement. Hello, caller. What's your
Yeah.
name? Where's you call from? You don't
Yeah,
necessarily have to
good
give your name if you don't want to.
afternoon. Mina Abdul, I call from Maryland.
Okay, Abdul, welcome. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, I just get hypothetical questions I will ask Mr. Luke.
Okay.
The inception of NGC, was there any agreement that we are not going to ally with any of the two grand old parties? That is one. Then secondly, did you support the loose alliance with COP? Then third question is, if Yumkela had formed an alliance with APC, what will have been your reaction? Thank you.
Okay, so let me just take those quickly then. The first point is that to the first question, no, there's no such written agreement that we won't align with A or B. The party's constitution is clear. It has provisions around how you deal with mergers and other things. First point. Second point is about the whole issue about COP. And let's just begin to knock some of these misconceptions. COP actually was birthed as an idea from within the NGC. Long before APC came into the COP process, COP had started, these political parties, including Unity Party and others, had started that relationship of working up and developing COP. And the whole COP context, so that you understand, was not something that Dennis Bright went away on his own and developed. As Arthur Pierre said on the program the other day with Matilda Cole, that the originating documents in terms of how COP works together and how NGC works with COP was actually drafted. The first draft was actually done by Yumkela himself. The whole COP process, that NGC's involvement in it, went through the INTC. The COP Secretary General was the NGC Secretary General. So this idea that COP is something that Dennis went away and did on his own is utter bonking nonsense. And we just need to park it. It's not at all. The substantive difference here between COP and this alliance, as we're hearing every day, suddenly Mr. Yunkela says, me and President don't talk for the last 2 years. You and President don't talk for the last years, but you nothing to see important for your party know about it, is the issue. So let's park this nonsense that you guys keep coming up with all this. Is it APC or is it SLPP? And let's do the third point. Let me just deal with the third point. Elections, where you live in America, where I live in the UK, when we make elections, now the government of the day, now in record, now with the judge. We judged the APC government in 2018. The president is given all the powers to bring all the APC IMP to book. He started a COI process. He appoints the ACC boss he wants. He has the legal processes all under his control. In 2023, it is the government of the day's record that we judge. We do not judge the opposition's record because we did that in 2018. So this is bonking nonsense.
Okay, but let me say this respectfully. I don't necessarily think it's nonsense. It's because people do not understand. So you're doing also a wonderful job by letting us understand. And I agree with you 100% that we judge the government of the day. So SLPP has to be judged by the records we didn't build for the past 5 years. I think it's so. And that's what people need to understand, that because people don't see, as basic as that may sound to you, people definitely don't get that understanding. You'll be amazed, Mr. Lee.
I really struggle that people live in America. I live in the UK.
No,
and I was saying to somebody, imagine, Victor, imagine the Lib Dem leader saying, I'm going to the next election with the sole purpose of stopping the Labour leader, Keir Starmer, from getting elected. I not consider the Conservative government in record. I'm not interested. My only interest is to stop the Labour government. You'll be thinking like, you're mad. That's what we'll be thinking, because now the government of the day now in record, they under the spotlight. That's what we should be pointing to.
That's true. And as basic as that sounds, believe it or not, most people who are into the APC, SLPP thing don't know that. So when we point out like this, people tend to appreciate and then see the emptiness of their support for either party. Because I happen to be one of those who never had any faith in the two political parties. And I've always preached otherwise. But my understanding and feeling has always been, you get for teach, it's like walking people across the street like a child. What we assume say people don't understand the political nature and the workings of a system, that's where we make a mistake. For people like you, people like me, who have maybe a slightly, I'm not going to say better, but slightly different idea, a good level throw your idea into how the system works. And so how the system works, so people go understand and say, oh yeah. Because I try to tell people then that, for say you are judging the government of the day based on the record to see if they should be given another term. But people don't do it that way. So I just want to share that.
I don't know. Whilst you were talking, there was a caller on the line.
Yeah, there's a caller on the line. Hello, caller. What's your name? And which side you call from? Hello? Hello, caller. Hello, caller. Caller, are you still on the line? Hello? The caller may have forgotten that he or she is on the line. Okay,
so let's proceed, because we did say to Mr. Luke that we won't take in more than an hour. He's a very busy man. So now let's. I think you can go over with the marriage certificate.
Okay. So,
And the God
Mr.
mommy
Liu,
and God daddy, they all.
yes, sir. So
Yes,
you
carry on.
do, yeah, no, you make some analysis on
Yeah.
the, I guess, the ineffectiveness of the so-called agreement between um, NGC and SLPP. So we would like for
Mhm.
let you share that analysis there with let
Yeah.
the public understand. Since we're there in the process of educating and bringing information to the folks. So please help way out on that.
Well, I think we all don't see the agreement. I don't know if you have it to hand to share, but of course, it's just like a two-page sheet of paper, and I think it covers about 13 points.
Yeah.
Quite a lot of the points them in it are practically, for all intents and purposes, they're irrelevant. The main real areas of of the agreement centers around that point 2 and point 12. So I wrote two pieces, a part 1 and a part 2, when I looked at it, and I think point 12 says something of says something to the effect that when the alliance wins the presidential election, the NGC will be included in an inclusive government. And then point 2 goes on to say that Julius Maada Bio shall be the sole presidential candidate of the alliance. Point 1 says that both parties will keep their individual identities. And when you look at the agreement, it basically just shows that the people within NGC basically sold their party short. When you look at this agreement in full, um, you can basically see one of the concerns that we've had, and the concern that Dr. Bright had when he said pick the team, he needed to be part of that, because he was very clear that when you're going into these kind of conversations with other parties, you get to do so with your eyes wide open. Yeah. This alliance agreement that the NGC has signed basically shows that the NGC legal advice has been completely defective, because if you go get a junior um, barrister, we just come out of university, right, this sort of agreement. This is just a very, very poor job. If you look at it, what the NGC are trying to suggest in this agreement, or the NGC are trying to convince us in this agreement, is that they've got an agreement through this piece of paper that which would lead that path for them to save Sierra Leone, as kind of keeps talking about saving Sierra Leone. The reality is, this agreement tries to suggest that there's a deal being done here where NGC is going to have a role in government and it's going to have a certain number of jobs. Essentially, the reality is that there is no commitment from the SLPP on any type of job or any number of job. In fact, when I don't see Kande Yumkela in the last few days, in a way we don't see him for like in the whole year. They actually work for in supper right now. Today they kono. Yesterday they put local. He's crisscrossing the country because he get to sell this alliance, because he has to work to make this alliance work so that he can earn the reward from the alliance. Because the party he's leading has gone into this with a very weak hand. One of the things that NGC were hoping to get in their negotiations was that the SLPP would allow them free run in their northwestern strongholds. That has not happened. The SLPP will be competing against the NGC in their northwestern strongholds. The NGC will not be competing against the SLPP in SLPP's strongholds in the south. So it then flips and brings this question in, which is to say, well, actually, What is motivating NGC to do this? Are you simply doing this to try and suppress APC vote share on the district block PR in the north, in those areas where you are, so you can have 3-party races going on in the northwest and just 2-party races going on in the south and the east? Because that's what is actually the reality, the unspoken thing about this whole agreement. When you look at the agreement, there's no way a president, any president, is going to share their prerogative of power, one of their prerogative of power, which is to make appointments, ministerial appointments, ambassadorial appointments, heads of parastatals, etc., to or with Dr. Yumkela or NGC. Take into account this, and I think your viewers need to understand this. Parliament adjourned on Tuesday, which in effect means Dr. Yumkela right now is a private citizen. He's not a parliamentarian. He has no office. He's not the NGC parliamentary leader anymore because Parliament has adjourned. He's not contesting for any election at any level, not local, not mayoral, not parliamentary, not the presidency. So Dr. Yumkela right now, or after the election, even if APC wins, if SLPP wins, is no different from Molai, Santigi, Alusain, Alasan, Babatunde, Serian, Fatu, any private citizen, because he would have no role. So the first question you then have to ask is, under what set of circumstance is a president going to negotiate with somebody who has no role in governance whatsoever? Who becomes a minister? Because the president is not an alliance president. The president is going to be an SLPP president. So on what basis is this going to happen? Because he's just a private citizen like me. The President Bionoga can negotiate with Victor Mengot. Inoga can negotiate with Mohamed Shillon. You're private individuals like Alan Luke. So on what basis is he going to negotiate with another private individual called Kande Yumkela? Why should he? What gives Kande Yumkela this power to be consulted by the president when he's a private individual? That is, if any law graduate can read that straight away in this alliance agreement. It makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. If you then look at points 3 and 12 of this alliance agreement, it talks about developing structures and also a mediation arrangement. Point 3 talks about structures. Point 13 talks about mediation. So essentially, you have an alliance in Dr. Yumkela's mind, but an alliance doesn't exist in any form. Now, if you are savvy Prince Hardin, you've got 2 months to the election. People are nominating candidates right now. You want to win an election. Are you going to spend your time wasting your time with NGC trying to develop structures when you should be out there campaigning? So those structures aren't going to be in place anyway. So in the event that the president reneges, what does NGC do? What's the internal mechanism to deal with this if you don't have it sorted? What does NGC do? Go to the courts? The judiciary which bends to the will of the government? Where do you go? So essentially what you have is an arrangement that basically sacrifices all the efforts of the remaining people in NGC, the executives in NGC, the members who are contributing their money in NGC, so that one or two individuals, the hope say then go get their job. And that's what you have.
Yes, I think we have another caller on the line, Mr. Shilon.
Oh, okay. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you call from?
Yeah.
Hello, caller.
Yeah, sorry again for calling me. Abdul again. I call from Maryland.
Okay, yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to implore Mr. Alan Luke, lady, kind of patient or get a cool head when they answer questions. I mean, I've asked from the teaching background when he come out. When a student asks me question, you know, they preempt for the student. Rather, you answer the question conscientiously. The students perhaps they ask the question not just because they don't understand what they ask or you don't know the answer, but now your opinion you want get, you want seek. With that is one. This is what an advice to him. That not they assume if they ask you questions, perhaps where you feel offensive, you offended to you, then you will just classify whoever they ask you the question. Now it's up to you as a teacher. Now, of things.
Can I, before you go forward, can I just respond to you?
I'm coming, please.
I was just going to give you an apology.
Okay.
Yeah. From the look of things, there is a dichotomy between the Alan Luke, Dennis Bright faction and Jesmed Suma and Kanye Yunkela faction. And from waiting, I don't sense from when this brouhaha started that you get one faction we want ally with the SLPP, and you get another faction we want ally with the APC. And there is this tug of war between the two factions. Where do we go? Are we all going to support this faction that wants to ally with SLPP, or are we going to support the faction that wants to ally with the APC? I think that's the dilemma they are faced with. I think that is what is leading to their disintegration, and it will eventually lead to their oblivion in the not too distant future. Thank you.
Can I just respond to that quickly? So caller, I didn't get to call his name. So caller, sorry if you felt I was angry towards you, and I take note of the points you've made about not sort of prejudging what your point of view was. Secondly, I just need to clarify that I'm not part of any faction. I'm not a member of NGC, so it could do whatever it chooses to do. I'm a free individual, and I'm able to challenge and scrutinize the NGC just as I will challenge and scrutinize any other political entity in Sierra Leone. And that's what I'm now doing.
Another caller on the line.
Hello, caller. What's your name? Who's you call from? Hello, caller. Hello, caller.
Good afternoon. Yes. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good
Mr. Demon. For Mr. Luke, sir, I got a question, and thank you all for doing the show. When NGC started, when the movement started, it was the KKY movement in the beginning. KKY came in and gave us that third option. A lot of people were very, very, happy and hopeful, thinking NGC is going to be the one to take. But then later on, you learn that we learned in Sierra Leone that we cannot have that third wheel. But Mr. Shillian, the third wheel is always possible because you cannot do it we cannot do it just in 1, 2, 3, 4 years. It's supposed to be a continuity. And because of this falling out of NGC now, a lot of the NGC that were really, really motivated, they just lost because the leader out of nowhere just comes out because some people were already preempting this is going to take place. But he just comes out and say the prodigal son is going back home to the father. Just like in the biblical story. So he's like the prodigal son. He went back to where he came from. But this is the same party that Kanda Yumkela have continuously talked about how bad they were, how this they were, that. So if you were NGC, because I know a lot of people, resigned from NGC. If you were NGC, was this the move you were expecting? Just like us Sierra Leoneans that are so disappointed, that thinking, the Al-San and Al-Hassan and the Beshe has come to save us. But yet the Beshe is going back, home. So what do we do then? Is there hope for Sierra Leone third wheel to function? Is there any hope? Is there somebody that is going to come, give us the leadership and changes with desire in Sierra Leone? That is my question to you, sir. Because it is very, very disappointing, because everybody was looking up to NGC, Yumkela. And this is what happens when we put all our hope on one person and the party is left, and the person leaves, the party does not function anymore. The NGC is no more. Guess what? Going forward.
Let me just respond to that quickly, and I think this has already come up in some of the conversation I've had in terms of the question from Mr. Shilon. I ran NGC UKI, and NGC UKI is the second biggest contributor to the financing of NGC. And I ran NGC UKI. I became chair in January 2020, and in March 2020 we had COVID. And throughout 2 years of my term, we were practically under lockdown. And we doubled the income we generated for NGC throughout lockdown. As chair of NGC UKI, throughout lockdown, I had to deal with members all the time who were experiencing problems, families dying, people losing jobs, losing business because of COVID. And one of the things I saw throughout that period was people had so much faith in NGC as a third way that notwithstanding all those challenges, they were faithful, regular in their giving. In the UK, we doubled our income. Now, Mr. Mengo will tell you, for example, because he is part of things like Prince of Wales, All Boys Association and other things. If you're part of all of these things in the UK, most of these things, their activity shut down. In NGC UKI, we doubled our income. And the reason why I say this is that so many people invested so much. They made so many personal sacrifices because they believed in this project. And when I say to Mr. Shilon that I can't see, you're telling me I'm being pessimistic, it's because I have this context. You see, because I've seen, a lot of people who went through, for example, now the turnarounds, it's like, hold on, I could have done something with my, all that pain and anguish people can go through. They still prioritize this vision. And now they're saying one individual just said, whoops, I'm going to take it this way. I'm going to do it this way. I don't care what you think. Now, to get more people to come back, to commit themselves with that level of constancy and regularity, it's not going to be possible just yet. It might happen, but I don't think it's going to happen in my time frame. And I don't think it's going to happen in the next 15, 20 years. And that's why I say this is a disservice to Sierra Leone.
Mr. Luke, just for purposes of context, maybe the reason why I believe and I get some optimism, such optimism, is because I recall I was old enough to be aware when we gave independence in 61. I was in Bo then. And I always want to make clear, let me, people from my alma mater know, when I talk about Bo, because the sooner you say you go to school at Bo, people tend to think about Bo school. So I want to make it clear so my school doesn't think I'm not blowing their horn. I went to Ahmadiyya Secondary School in Bo, the first Ahmadiyya Secondary School. And for another day, I can argue that during my time, it was the best secondary school, not only in Bo, but arguably in the whole country. And I can put it in context. But that's a different matter. Let me go back, to what we are talking about. But I recall APC was a very young party when they went against the SAPP in 1967. And beyond the expectation of everyone, even APC themselves, within a short period of time, they come into power. So I have seen enough in Australian politics for no say things are possible. So that's the reason why I get such optimism, because I've seen it in my lifetime and with country there. We also have seen even the other aspect of where even parties not win, like what Charles Magai, they broke away from SAPP. He was able to garner sufficient winnings to be able to influence outcome. So we don't see where Timu Bandura aligned with Karafa Smart. So we get a lot of history, a lot of things for make we think possible. So you don't have to be the largest party. The last time we get Mr. and Jonathan Sandy on the show, he says something that makes sense to me. He said, if I don't become the king, I like to be the kingmaker. So the small parties then can become the kingmakers. Let the big guys, let APC and SFP throw their weight wherever they may be. At the end of the day, they're going to need the smaller parties then, as a practical matter. So I think, there's so much talent like you, Mr. Luke, talents like Dr. Bright. You people should not just throw in the towel and let things be, and let the chips fall where they may. Let's be an influence in directing where the chips fall. Is all I'm saying, with the talents, with the collective talents that you people have. There are other parties. Yeah. There's the Sandy's party, there is Miss Cole's party, and there are other parties. You don't necessarily have to form a new one. You can join another party for be able for influence policy. These are all, I'm just simply encouraging you guys. That's all I'm saying. But this is too much talent to just let go, because Yom Keller not act to people's expectation. I wouldn't do that. I think you people should put that talent collectively together to prove to Yom Keller that he has made the biggest mistake in his life. He would have been better off to hang in there and just stay the course, and things would have been better. But without talent like you and the others, we really get the NGC going. I think if we do not put that talent behind some other promising party, the dream of Sierra Leone becoming a better country will hard to achieve. That's all. I don't want the dream to die. That's my comment.
Comment noted.
Well, I
Yes,
think, Mr. Shillon, we did say we'll not keep him for more than 1 hour. Do you have a passing shot for him? And then and I think I'll keep quiet because I started the conversation. And we'll ask Mr. Luke to tell us and say what's your vision for 2023 election? And what are your hopes and fears?
Well, I think I probably will start off with my hopes and fears first, because my hopes and fears are that the outcome of the 2023 election is not one that leaves a large section of people feeling that their voting intention, their vote expression has been compromised in some way. Because if that happens, then you then get into a situation where people will then feel that they need to take and make all those sorts of action which are outside of the democratic process. So my hopes and fears is that we will end up in a place, because we've seen in the run up to this election how when you compare it to 2018, the number of political parties which are going to contest is not the same. Things like the way we had political party debates in 2018 between the various contestants for the presidency and for the Freetown mayoralty, that's completely absent now. We've seen, for example, how one political party is able to go out and do campaigns and others are being restrained by the police. We've seen political parties like Unity, C4C as an example, being prevented from completing their convention processes and other things like that. So on top of that, we've also seen other things like the midterm census redistribution of seats and boundaries and other things, and the use of the district block proportional representation system. So we've seen a whole lot of things which would leave a lot of people not to feel confident about the election. So my hope is that we allow people to vote and express their democratic will, so that at the end of the process, people feel that even if their choice is not the choice that emerges, that they feel that their vote really counted, without feeling that their vote has been dismissed or ignored. Because I'm very concerned about that process and how we manage that. With regards to the elections itself, as I've said, for me, it is the government's record that is on record. And I want and I hope that with where things are economically, that a lot more people will be making decisions based on the facts, the data, not the sentiment, not ethno-regional politics, not because I'd always be green, so I'd always be green, or I'd always be red, so I'd always be red. Look at the factual things. Look at the evidence. You know, it is the government's record. What we need to be asking ourselves is, has this government in power now done a good job? End of story. And if we know that not to be the truth, then we should be removing them from power. If we think and we know that to be true and the data speaks to that, then we should be giving them our confidence. It's just that simple. And for me, when you look at the food prices, where food prices are, where you look at the Leone value, where the Leone value is, where you look at the level of hunger in the country right now, where you look at the lack of the ability to express your freedom to speak. I mean, we only saw last week, Zainab Sharif been detained for airing frustrations. We've seen people come out on the 10th of August and been gunned down for airing their frustrations. When you look at all of those things, you have to conclude that this government has not done a good job and it must be voted out. And I just hope that people can see beyond all this rhetoric of saving Sierra Leone and make we do alliance and all this sorts of stuff, because that's not what it is about. Look at the facts, because I don't believe that any of this alliance conversation between NGC and SLPP is anything to do with saving Sierra Leone. It is just opportunistic. It's just about some people in NGC who've been 10 years locked out of 10 years during the Ernest Koroma government, who backed Kande, didn't back BO, and have been locked out of 5 years of the BO government, wanting to get into power again. And that's what it is. We have to have a country that looks for the interest of our youth. Our country is too much focused on the needs of old men. Yeah? It's too much about the needs of old men. It is not about the needs of the youth of the country. Even though they make up 70% or so of the population, it has to be about the needs of the young people and how we shape for them a brighter future.
Well, thank you very much. I think we had one caller on the line. I don't know if that caller wants to ask you a question or a comment, but if the caller is still there, we can have it. And then this is the final take. We can let Mr. Luke go and rest. And
happy to take the
we're very much happy. Yeah, the caller.
Yeah. Una, tell Una thank you for this wonderful program. And I want to tell Mr. Luke thank you for where he come and take part for this program and make himself get the side of the story. And we pray for him, let God guide and protect him. Whatever decision we want to make, let God make a very wise decision. Because, in a country like this, we only get few people when they come into politics for the reality of the Sierra Leoneans. So you're not one of them because you stand your ground. And we go continue for the pray for you. Because when you stand your ground, you know what you come into politics for. You not come into politics because you want come like how this una former leader way na Kande Koloyum Kela way deceive the people of Sierra Leone. People and puts them open trust and say, okay, this can be the third force na this country where people go. No matter how long it take, it just depends to how it for been there. But you don't deal with a government, you don't critique a government hypocrite because every time when a man them doing criticism, it must join the two parties them. And then they ever standing ground for critics SLPP directly. Must say, well, APCB don't do harm. Well, so SLPP, we not for follow this step again. Most of them critique them if we not they follow. Now, so they do in statements them. But it don't show in true color. Una already out the future go tell. Una don't try for the younger generation, not only like we again. The younger ones that we go come up. Una go always remain now the pictures for say una stand up for the betterness of the country. Because this una time una can take always they come and tell we things the way they happen at the country. Now only God go pay una. We the people are not going to pay una because we Sierra Leoneans them, the one that we the younger ones them, the one that where we inherit the country from, we na una. The one that we una inherit them from, they all not do well. But at least una don't dey in a road now for try for preach the right things. So God go continue for bless una. God go really continue for bless una. But we young generation, I don't know waiting we do God. Or waiting if God na vex power we are waiting. Because we not be an example to we country at all. We not be an example for the younger ones them. Tell me who that go come na salon with good intention where we Sierra Leoneans then get for look and say this is really sincere with the intention. Look now, this government intentionally the most will see for see because all waiting they do so, then they do and deliberately. They intend for rig the election. And they say now openly, they intend for rig the election. But if all these small party them partake, the percentage for let them go second round, it go big. But if now only few party them partake by the election, so then we come in first round, so the election no forget second rounds. If we now observe, nine then do to all unity party, we get one of the strongest women the way Salon for they proud of. You the one this for free, where the young region decide say, yeah, what you want 9 for B. Now, if they take this percentage for the people who register, don't the one that we get for can vote automatically inside the first election, the first rounds of the election, the winner they emerge. So if they want recam, Nayanda now then go do am for recam. But God, anything where we they do now this world, we they pay for them. Even now we grave them. We don't see people who don't lead the countries they out and they die before the ending, out and the end. God, they always punish them. But the only thing, let God bless you. Let God bless you now all for this particular thing. Let God make you take a wise decision where will make you know regret them. Now that's my own opinion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If I could just touch on the point where the caller just make, please, because I think the sentiment where the caller just make is a very important one, and for me, this is now one of the things. Then when I reflect on this coalition issue, where really not a big concern for me. Political pluralism. This concept of political pluralism, the idea, say, we forget more than one party. More than just two political parties, is a central idea of we truth and reconciliation process about how we sustain we democracy in Salon post the Civil War. Okay, it is inbuilt in that. The idea, say, if you get for sustain a fragile democracy, you forget political pluralism. So more than one party. So broad voices, everybody's voices is involved. So no one group not feel marginalized. You're not therefore be part of the big tribe for let you feel to see you get a voice and a say in our governance. It's a central idea. So here's the thing. In 2018, 2017, run up to 2018, we know, I'm an NGC member, and I know the challenge that we went through to register NGC as a political party. I know the challenge, all the roadblocks that we and Eskroma and APC put in the path of NGCs from registering. We all know that. We all know the issue about how, they even went to the extent of trying to say, Dr. Yumkela not to even Sierra Leonean, to say get a second passport, and this to see issue came up. We all know that, yeah? But here's the thing. Notwithstanding all of that, NGC became a party in 2018. If that same climate, the climate within now of repressing and shutting down political parties, some of the points that this guy just talked about, C4C last week being prevented from going to convention. Their own leader, parliamentary leader, obtain a high court injunction from prevent them from going to their convention, only so that this week he joins SLPP. We have Unity Party. We don't get them police clearance. And during their convention, the police steps in and shuts it down. We are seeing all of this happening to these political parties. And then yet you say you're not the leader of NGC. Your own party came about in 2018 because there was, notwithstanding Anis Korma's pressure, there was political pluralism. Without political pluralism, NGC will not exist. If NGC was trying to form this year, it would not have been formed. And yet you see all that going on, and you say nothing. It doesn't bother you. And you're also chairing the political, this is Mr. Yumkela, by the way, you're chairing the Political Affairs Committee in Parliament. Your committee has oversight responsibility over PPRC and ECSL. You've not said a word about the quality of the voter cards. You've not said a word about the actions of PPRC. You've not said a word about all this planning that we're seeing around the election processes. And yet you're telling Sierra Leoneans that you are going to save Sierra Leone. And in your capacity as chairman of these parliamentary oversight body, you've been completely silent. Who's going to believe you? Who is going to believe you? And for me, that issue about political pluralism, because that name get for sustain with democracy. It's not about whose party Alan Luke belonged to. I want to see many political parties thrive. We all get for feel free. You can then ayon, me then ayon. We get different political opinion. We meet na Arsenal. We all support Arsenal. Yeah, we have our political arguments. We'll go down the pub for a cup of tea or something. Why can't we have that in our country? Why can't we have that in our country? It's just that simple. Because that now you need for stop we sliding back into war. But it doesn't seem like we've learned a lesson.
Well, Mr. Shilon, any closing remark before we release Mr. Luke?
Now, I just want to thank Mr. Luke immensely for taking up the time within a very short notice period for joining with today, because as usual, people will listen to the program and they participate, and we get some dedicated listeners. They are always happy, and Mr. Luke can tell by the comment of the last caller, and there are some comments coming in, written comments also, by some very dedicated listeners. We greatly appreciate you coming and lending some more useful information and understanding of where we are politically and the state of affairs. And I just also, as always, hope and express that we get somebody like Mr. Luke for express as disillusioned as he may be, to muster sufficient courage to foresee some light at the end of the tunnel. That we flag as a great nation that we once was as a nation, Sierra Leone, the leading country of the hemisphere years back, we will attain that status day again. But the country by itself is not going to do it. We, the people, have to do it. So it is that optimism that I thank and express the gratitude for Mr. Luke coming, and hope we see you again many times. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Mr. Mengot. So, well, for our listeners, we get some important show. Mr. Luke can stick around if he wants, but he's free. But because we don't talk on the agenda today, we want to talk about the bill where Parliament passed recently. So I will put it back to you, Mr. Mengot, for now we'll talk about the Parliamentary Act, where Parliament just passed, and the manner in which we then go about it, and whether it's good or bad for the country. So send it back to you, sir.
Apart from just the Parliamentary Act,
I
can
think
you hear
maybe
me?
that's all. Yes, now we can hear you. I think that's all we're going to have time for, because
Okay.
we.
I mean, now look at waiting this Parliamentary Act about. And I'll tell you something. Before we delve into the Parliamentary Act, for me, somebody where they in governance, and I don't privilege for working the mother of all parliaments. I know about committee system and all the. Let's use that in context. Then we'll go to the Parliamentary Act. But by the way, it's normal, because according to legal documents that is going through Parliament, it's a bill, not an act. It only becomes an act where you don't go through the processes and you don't get presidential seal of approval, what we call presidential assent. So this last week in the Parliament, the last 1 week, well over 10 or more bills then pass in the parliament. Very important one them. But the rest of them, we go deal with them in the second period program. Okay, what is this parliamentary act all about? Well, it gets so many things. Then talk about, because parliamentarian and not get terms of reference. And I'll give another thing. In the past, normally in parliament, you have the majority leader. The majority leader, now the leader of the party will get the largest number of seats. You get the minority leader, then the opposition party with the largest number of seats. Parliament will get, there was confusion. Because at the beginning, APC been get the most seats. But we know what happened when they lost some of the seats. So they were not the majority party leader. But then apart from that, the person we can call leader of government business. The leader of government business are the person where they represent the government in power. Then are the leader of government business. Then you get in deputy. Then you get the other parties. What's in the role of that leader of government business? Now you get for rally the government, the party where in government, the MPs, but also equally, now in the champion any law where the government want pass. Allow us see the different way they can pass law, because I want to let people to understand this. Then I will talk about the process, then we'll talk about the Parliamentary Act. Number one, the first law of the land, now the constitution. We all man know. It gets so many controversy. Over the years, we don't get amendments there, here and there. Even this year, we get some amendments. Even the PR system all come because of the law, the controversy where they, because you cannot get two different clauses for all election. Clause 38, we say first past the post. 38A, we say PR system. And to choose. You know. So the constitution, all other acts of parliament, for to the constitution. You can get different acts. The Land Act will then pass. The Gender Empowerment Bill, a bill will then become an act. You know. The things to do with the finance, because every year we can get 1 or 2 years, we can get finance act where they show how they spend when we receive money. But after that, we get what we call secondary legislation, when a statutory instrument. A statutory instrument, now either an extension of an existing act or an add of an existing act. It's a fast way to get law being made, because you never deal with the whole law. You just add or subtract from a law. But even with the statutory instrument, you get two types of statutory instrument. You get ordinary statutory instrument. I'll give an example. When Alexander you can use like we been get COVID, where you want to make a state of health emergency, you can use that. And a statutory instrument get forget explanatory notes why you want to change the law or add to the law. And there's a problem. Then you get a constitutional statutory instrument. When an instrument will relate to something with the inside the constitution. And the example of that are the statutory instrument where they use for bringing the PR system. And let us show where the problem come. For constitutional statutory instruments, normally in the government the proposal, and we will know, say them in discuss them during the Election Act. For pass them, you get forget a 2/3 majority. 2/3 majority, because the government where they put that instrument, they get for convince the people and say, and the other parliamentarian and the opposition, say, this changes we want to bring, whether for amend the law or add to the law, it is in the interest of the people and country. So you can forget that 2/3 majority there, because in a constitution. In fact, some of the constitutional clause before you even amend that, you can forget into it. Then you get the ordinary statutory instrument when a day the problem come. When they say now, that ordinary statutory instrument, they use the same way for approval like a constitutional instrument. But this time now the reverse. He say when you bring a statutory instrument to Parliament, the one they will not agree, which mostly are the opposition, them, they can forget a 2/3 majority for two amounts. So instead of proposal for convince people them, now the one they will not agree, now then for now say we not agree and get 2/3 of the parliamentarians. If that not happen, the first way they lay down the Parliament, they read them, they go make a motion. If they never get that majority there, it stay in Parliament for 14 days, it becomes law. So in the previous government, they use that for boundary delimitation. In this government, they not use statutory instruments so many times. They use them for this. They use them for so many things. So we law them now. You keep business there inside it. Now, look into the bill. There are two types of bill in the Parliament. A bill, either they amend the law or they bring in new law, like the gender and women's empowerment. That's a new law, right? And when before you get a bill, you get people that will get for responsible for that bill. If not government bill, then the government get for pull them. But where the problem lies, we don't get people them in the Parliament with the draft bill. The bill then normally, if not a government bill, then the Attorney General office then the drafter. So that actually means the executive now they imposing will on the legislature, where they against the doctrine of separation of power.
Correct.
So when they draft that bill there, it go through before they present in a Parliament, they get for gazette them. And why then they gazette them? Now for let people they know the intention. But almost people they read gazette. Because a government printers and they print gazette. So if you don't know what's in the app, unless you get interest like somebody like we, if you just alone, you go buy in a government bookshop, or you go to a Parliament the site. So when they don't gazette the bill, when it comes Parliament, whoever they introduce the bill, you get what you call the first reading of that bill. When they never go into it in detail, then just they say, okay, this is not the bill. Don't wait in at the object of the bill. Then a women's empowerment bill, where they say, okay, now for give women the 30% opportunity in employment and political space. That's the object. So when they do the first reading, the speaker will present it to the member for approve. But there lies the problem again when we come to our Parliament, because you get two ways for approval now. You get the one way the speaker will say, as many as agree, say aye. To the contrary, no. And that way, then by decibels, the voices. So if you see the speaker don't say the aye, that's it. Some other time in there where they go say for vote, the speaker will say, let all man team up, let them counter. But of course, we get a clause now, Constitution 77(1)(k), where if you party there and see you team up, you don't become traitor. So the process, they know, is constrained. So after that first reading, the bill get to go to a committee stage. It can either go what you call pre-legislative committee, when a constitutional committee where they deal with. But each subject area committee, like the transport committee, like we get a bill recently for set up the Salem Public Transport Authority, where for increase road transport as a regulatory body. That can go to the transport committee. The committee normally made up of 11 people, plus the chairman of all parties. When then they look into the details of that building, then they make recommendations for change before it come back in Parliament. When they're attending at the second reading. During that second reading day, now the time where the other members of Parliament we're not in that committee day. And that's it, they'll get a chance. And let me say again why it's important for the committee stage. Committee stage, not a parliamentarian no more. The committee for invite every group or individual where that bill they go affect. Let themselves can give their views. Now called participatory democracy. But that doesn't happen. So after Parliament don't discuss all that thing and then they make amendments. Now that's when they vote on the amendments. They can get several amendments, and for move them amendment, you get to do on several motions. When you say one person they raise the motion, another person second down, either they debate them or they vote on and say, well, this one we agree, this one we not agree. When they take note of, then they go back to the drawing board with all the amendments they now. Then they go check them. For she say now the wish of both the people and the parliamentarians before it can now. For the third reading, with the third reading, now fact check for make sure say all the thing and the way they put it inside and it satisfy people. That process was used for the cyber bill. In fact, one of the cyber act, and one of the legislation that we go through all them processes because there was a time when they may say let them go consult back. But we see within this 1 week. Boku bill and they go to Parliament. The first reading, second reading, third reading, all take place within 2 hours. And now happen with this Parliamentary Act or the Parliamentary Bill.
How long what time frame are we talking about? How long this all the readings here for take? How many days or how long?
Normally, the shortest possible time we go able to do all that process will be 2 to 3 weeks or even a month. Some can take more.
But it take 2 hours.
Because of this time they all take 2 hours. You know, you can read and say first reading, proceed. Second reading, you first reading and second reading on the same day. No, you only do a second reading of a bill after it has been examined by the committee. So then pass all the bill. So let's come to the one we want to talk now, the Parliamentary Act or the Parliamentary Bill. Now, this is not the first time. This is not 3 chances they get for pass them. The first way they bring them, they mean call them Parliamentary Welfare Bill. Now, welfare of the parliamentarians. But the Parliament will get a welfare committee, which comprise of several members. Right? So it's a parliamentary bill. Then discuss them. But then, when for presenting a parliament, then change it into a private member's bill. A private member's bill simply means a private member where they don't lobby, either his constituents or some businesses or everything for bringing a new law. So the owners of that private member building and the private member for present them, then it gets a seconder. So the first time when they bring them, government say they don't get no hand for them. But it was gazetted. So they left for several months. Then come back this time. They present it now as a Parliamentary Act. Apart from all the things that we deal with the administration and everything, the one that we raise eyebrows when I want to talk about, now the package we MP then they get, because they know say, under the PR system, some of them know they come back. Now make sure you see beaucoup people they don't begin jump ship. So that if they jump ship now, they will give them a handshake. For God's sake, you serve 1 term in Parliament, 5 years. They say for you the equivalent of $50,000. You serve 2 terms, the equivalent of $80,000. Put that next. A principal of a secondary school, we go down teach for 20 or 25 years. In annual gross salary, not reach $4,000. Same teacher and now then they groom the one that will become parliamentarian, become minister. Let's talk about the police. The police, them obviously they talk about them being biased. Now look how they pay police. I can tell you, say, an assistant superintendent of police when an ASP, that you don't come out from inspector with the next rank, na ASP, then you get superintendent of police. Now they don't extend that now, self. They get CSP with a chief superintendent. Now they don't add 2 more rank. When assistant commissioner of police, then you get AIG, yeah, assistant inspector general, then you get inspector general. So if you now take a CSP, a chief supreme police, where sometimes for attain that rank, if you go the short way where you get your degree, you as an inspector, sometimes the minimum it will take you for reach that rank in 10 years. A CSP in Sierra Leone police does not earn the equivalent of $500 a month. These are the people that were entrusted with life on. All this thing there you get Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we right now get 3 motoka. For God's sake, why Mr. Speaker forget 3 motoka? Now I say, well, why they go let them give me 1? Not only they for give me 1, they also say they give me equivalent of 1,000 or 50 million leons for that buy furniture. But you know, tell me say all this same Mr. Speaker, I mean the guy was rent, and if you know this same Mr. Speaker now we can pass a bill for a property that them not seize before on a dubious, then get all them property, then there some of them property they say they take rent. We want to say Mr. Speaker not get furniture in house. So Napala I been asleep. You know been get bed. So why left office now we get for game bed. So this is the unfairness. The way when they pass the bill and everything. Even the bill not go through because the opposition now say some of them. So in fact, some of the MPs them they're consciously absent because now next they go pass on 12 midnight last day. So what's Julius Caesar? We say, oh conspiracy, Sheamus down to show that by night when evils are most free. Oh then by day, where will that find the cavern dark enough to hide their monstrous visage? Seek it in smiles and affability. So now next, don't cover their face and go pass the bill. Right? The next day, and the final day of Parliament, where Parliament the lock with the president all go there. You understand? You can see all the smile. They give them a pat on the back. Some man say we'll see next time. They will see the 2 big boys there. Then care people in the parliament, so we'll talk about parliamentary decorum as well. One side they say, Madabio must go. In the way of parliament. They get some other one, they wear them dress with green, where they sing. Not now we put on day. Not to you for pull and day. Come on. This is a secret place. So minus this new thing. What's in parliamentarian now then you get? The parliamentarian, you get 25 million a month. So without this new bill not change concept, under the compensation scheme, if now one time is out, it get 40% of that salary for life. So if you lost, you sit at 40. And God makes sure say you live till 70. So government going to pay you for the next 30 years. Not only that, then going to give you medical. Then each time when they increase the current parliamentary salary, you self you want to increase. The one we don't serve for 2 terms, you get 80%. And that's what's in the happen now. And with the parliament, apart from that salary they get, you know, then are different committees them. They can forget 60, they can forget sitting allowance. But the man they work, MP not get job description. They pay them for where they go work monthly. Then in work way for do we go sit in a committee, you get for pay extra for that. Not only that, you give the man free motorcar with a number plate. With that number plates there where show say MP constituency 002. Now then they use for broke the law, broke traffic. You know, even Mr. Speaker is guilty of that. And this same president will come for his first decree. Now for say anybody where broke traffic if I face the full force of the law. This is a case of talk and not do. And anybody can check them, the executive order. Not only that, we hospital are not good. You know, remember the case of Dr. Wally, a doctor with an emergency call, who was called to go on emergency. He not get your own transport. He can't afford that with his salary. The average doctor salary is about $300 a month. He jump get accident. Even when he get accident, we not get scanner at any hospital for doing any scan. He died. These are the heroes. So these are the things we're talking about. People then call this Operation Pay Yourself. Then you might the only guy on motorcar. You get 45 liters of fuel every week. Then are you the repair motorcar back? So these are the issues we people that learn to understand. So even if the bill, then people here who call parliamentarians, parliament for work with and do waste some man for one day not talk. Because in England, I work in England Parliament. When they appoint you, each parliamentarian, if you're in a new parliament, if you're in a new MP, then they give time when they ask you for do a maiden speech. What's in that maiden speech they about? The maiden speech, now waiting at your vision for it. And waiting at your vision for your constituency, the people that they represent you. Some MP they don't talk mumu. And now, under this PR system, we don't see the Kuskas where they form. Now, all side. Now, party, the MP, then they go represent. Not to the people there. So, now, left and there, I hope they explain everything. And the co-host, if you want to comment on that, and we will go more into all these things.
Well, just very briefly, Mr. Mengo, thank you so much. Okay, I see somebody sent a thing. It's called paying attention to the actions, not just words spoken. That may be true. Well, I want to go back to let me just summarize what you just explained about the Parliamentary Act. Now, for let people to understand, this is why, like me, we happen to be in the minority, take the position that there is no market difference between APC and SLPP. These are two sides of the same coin. When
where
it
we
comes
the
time,
Englishman called two peas in a pod.
there you go. There you go. Because now we see with all them privileges here, with all them benefits here with parliamentarians and the give. Even when it comes, when have we had with parliamentarians and they till midnight to debate something that is in the best interest of the country or the people till midnight, till after midnight. But this time they make sure say they were in parliament until past midnight because parliament was reaching the end and parliament was shutting down. And the parliamentarians they want for votes, of course, with the assent or the nudging of the president, that they will get all them benefits here when they ask for. You know, in addition to the already existing benefits when they get for recess allowance, housing allowance, sitting allowance, monthly salary of about $2,000 a month, you know, and constituency money, and medical bills allowance, medical fee allowance of about at least $5,000, and on and on and on. Very little is said about the other areas of the government, like doctors who play such an important role in our life, where, as Mikos does say, a doctor is on call in an emergency room. When in call him, he not get motor car of his own for be able for go attend to emergency cases. This is not the problem. So when a lot of we sit down with the talk APC and SLPP, when there's an emergency, nobody asks you before then take you in an emergency room, say, you know, APC, you know, SLPP. The system, they equally affect everybody. We poor, we not get any means. So instead of we trying to build the foundation and the structure for let it work for we all, we they undermine them. We they focus on we parliamentarians them. We they pay them 6 times more than we they pay doctors. But it's not just pay no more. We don't mention all the other salaries we didn't get. And now they are saying, if we serve just 1 term, 5 years in the parliament, if we go out, because we know say we're not going to win, we want to get pension for the next 30, 40 years. Also, that job there within the government where you go work 4 or 5 years, you get pension, you know? But this is what you would do to people. The people that work for pay adequately, and when they preach this, the coast just talk about the police. Almost an inspector and a police they pay, grossly underpaid. And this very Sierra Leone, there are people in Sierra Leone who make $10,000, $15,000 a month paid by the government as consultant, as this, as that, most of whom are doing nothing but are just helping each other. So the corruption is there from the top all the way down. And this is nothing new. The Stevens era was riddled with corruption. Momo era riddled with corruption, not President Momo himself. He was less interested in getting rich and more into the life or pleasure. But for me own take on it, the man was sick. He suffered from alcoholism. We don't recognize that as an illness or sickness, but it is. So then the Ernest Koroma situation, like it or not, President Koroma came out as a former president, being, if not the richest man in Sierra Leone, one of the richest men in Sierra Leone. I leave it up to you guys for say, oh, he made it all honestly and fine. So, you know, when I can follow myself with all of that. And when I would support people, when I can follow myself with President Bio, all these guys are looking out for themselves. To them, it's an organization of who can out-corrupt who. They're not the ask you say, you're not Minde, you're not Timini, you're not Limba. No. These guys come in all colors. They come in all tribes. So to begin to understand that they are not coming there for the benefit of the people, you know, they are coming there for their own benefit, for get rich as quickly as possible. But what we see they happen in Sierra Leone, if you're an APC supporter, you turn a blind eye. Oh, President Bio is above board. Everything is fine. They go take 1,000 trip and get per diem, and oh, if none of the per diem, then they go keep all. And on and on and on and on. So, in fact, in the midst of that, we're about to forget one video of one play. This was a video about a Gambian woman, a parliamentarian in Gambia, just for showing the difference between what you would call a dedicated parliamentarian or a dedicated person who will go into parliament or will go into politics for serve. Now we'll see if we get one person that will parliament will stand up and vocalize objection or opposition to all this lofty pension or package where they vote for in the parliament. So I go ask the control room for play that video they ask for purposes of illustration. For let people know.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I would first of all like to thank the committee clerks of this August House for the great work that they have done by spending the whole night in this August Assembly preparing a report for us. I thank you, clerks of the National Assembly. Honorable Speaker, I think looking at the Honorable Minister's statement and looking at the budget, I think that our government does not love this country. They do not have the feeling to nurture our children in this country. Honorable Speaker, $6 billion in salaries alone, not in administrative cost. Honorable Speaker, and we say we are a poor country. Honorable Speaker, the median age in this country is 19 years old. We should consider the life and the livelihood of our children. We should be investing in education. We should be investing in health rather than paying ourselves, feeding ourselves out of the poor people of this country. I will start with this August Assembly, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, to see the salary of the Honorable Speaker increased from 658 million to 658,000 to 1,560,000. I feel ashamed to call myself an honorable member. Honorable Speaker, I gave myself for service. I did not give myself for the poor people to feed me and my family. Honorable Speaker, when I saw this, I felt embarrassed. I did not want to come to this budget session because I said to myself, there is no need, because we are just sharing the cake in our pockets, going home, feeding ourselves. Not only that, but to see the responsibility allowance, the residential allowance, the roving allowance, and all those for the representatives of the people. It is embarrassing for me to go back to my poor constituency and tell them that the meager resources of this country, I am paid that much at your expense. I took an oath, Honorable Speaker, to serve and to give back to my society, not to enrich myself. And even if I go to the Constitution, Honorable Speaker, it says that we shouldn't deliberately enrich ourselves, and increasing our salaries is deliberately enriching ourselves, and that is an embarrassment. I think as a National Assembly, we should not accept any salary increment. It was in this August Assembly that we sat and discussed the salaries of the ministers and denied them, even though they went behind our backs and increased it. That is their problem. We offered ourselves for service, Honorable Speaker. We were not appointed. We were elected, and we offered ourselves, Honorable Speaker. And I think we should think of our people when we do the budget. I'm not allowing you to observe me. I don't have that time. When you are on your own feet, observe yourself, please.
All right. All right. Are we on?
Yes, we are on. We are on.
Okay. Yeah. So let me just, Mr. Mango, let me just give you my quick take on that. This is what you see something like this, it inspire you. I mean, it makes you feel good. If we have such people, a woman like this get the potential for be president of a nation because she's committed to service. Everything one expects of a dedicated politician, a sincere politician, she said it all. And I expect the people for feed me. I know can I for enrich myself, or constitution prohibit that. But we don't spend a whole night, they try to see how we can increase to pay. And even when the minister, they ask for increment, when we oppose them, then find a way. So this is an African thing. We just hate each other. We don't like ourselves. We're very insincere. And we will use religion. We're going to use tribalism for mislead people.
I think we are coming to the end of our program, but there's one last call on the line. Let's take up, and we get up us in the final shot. So don't go further than we wish.
Yeah, that's great. So, hello, caller.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me online.
All right, sir.
I think we are always missing the point about the problem in Africa. It's time we stop discussing events and incidents and begin to think out of the box. The problem in Africa, and especially West Africa, is cultural. We have to accept certain things about us before we can have the change we wish. Our cultures bring us up in mistrust and corruption. That's why you see a common trend across. This lady in Gambia is just one out of the lot. In Sierra Leone, there are also people who are one out of the lot. I am sure my friend Mr. Mangot knows that I may be one out of the lot. In every society, children learn what they live. They grow up to be what they were taught. Our societies teach corruption. In the sociology of linguistics, you are told that whatever practice or characteristic is not common in a culture, that culture does not have a word for it. Look at all the linguistic systems in Sierra Leone and in West Africa. All of them have words for corruption. So which means it's part of our culture. Do we want to change corruption? Do we want to build better societies? Let us go back to base, look at our cultures, have a cultural examination and research, and see where we can bring trust into society, because where there is no trust, nothing works. Abbas Bundo and others have done what they've done. I bet my life, down the line, would have several governments come in, they will do the same or worse. I thank you, sir, for listening to me.
Thank you very much, sir, for calling. So, Mr. Mengot,
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir. I yield to you.
I think I said my lot. We're happy with Mr. Luke in comment, and this short thing where they educate people about how they pass bills and everything. We hope to continue with some of this. Next week we will talk about this other one, and we also get a surprise from another party where they can give own version. So until we meet next time, me from Sorry UK, I'm saying goodbye, and then it's up to you to end the relay, sir.
Yes. Good night, everyone. Thank you for listening. We appreciate comments and call-ins. Please stay tuned next week. Let we meet again and try for exchange ideas in this common marketplace. So until then, have a nice week, and we'll meet again next Sunday. Bye-bye.